The movie begins with this rat named Remy, who lives with his whole colony. But what sets Remy apart is this incredible, super rare sense of taste and smell he's got. We meet his dad, who's the leader of the clan, and also his brother, Emile. One day, Remy smells something weird in a pile of food, and he quickly stops his dad from eating it. And it's a good thing he did, because they discover the food was laced with rat poison. Because of this, his dad gives him the official job of poison sniffer to protect the entire colony from any bad food. But Remy, you see, had ambitions bigger than just sniffing out spoiled garbage. He was always arguing with his dad, trying to convince him that they needed to stop eating trash and start stealing clean food from human kitchens. His dad would always shut him down, warning him about the huge danger that humans and their kitchens represent. Of course, Remy doesn't listen, because his passion for food was just too strong. He was completely mesmerized by the famous French chef, Gusteau, who owned a 5-star restaurant in Paris and wrote the book Anyone Can Cook. Remy would sneak into the kitchen of the old lady they lived near just to watch Gusteau on TV and eat some of the good stuff. One time, while watching Gusteau's show, he gets really sad when he learns that the great chef died of a broken heart after his restaurant lost a star from a harsh review written by the critic Anton Ego. Later, while walking in the garden, Remy finds a mushroom and is just fascinated by it, so he decides he has to cook it. He goes to his brother Emile, gets a piece of cheese, gathers a few other ingredients, and climbs onto the roof to cook the mushroom over the chimney. Then, out of nowhere, bam! Lightning strikes the antenna, and even though they get knocked to the ground, Remy is ecstatic. The mushroom is now perfectly smoked. To complete the dish, he and Emile sneak into the kitchen to find some saffron, but right at that moment, the old lady wakes up, sees them, and grabs her shotgun. She starts firing like crazy. Remy and Emile split up to escape. When the lady runs out of bullets, Remy and Emile grab onto a chandelier to catch their breath. But unfortunately for them, she reloads, fires a shot into the ceiling, and the whole thing cracks and comes crashing down, revealing the entire rat colony that was living inside. It's total chaos. Rats are running in every direction to escape, and in the middle of it all, Remy quickly runs back to grab Gusteau's cookbook. The rats hop into little boats they had hidden and escape into the waterway, but Remy doesn't make it in time. He uses the book as a little raft and tries to catch up, but the old lady keeps shooting at them, separating him from his family. Remy gets swept into a different tunnel and finds himself completely alone and lost in the sewers of Paris. Sad and hungry, he opens the book, and suddenly he imagines the ghost of Chef Gusteau speaking to him, saying, "If you focus on what you've left behind, you will never be able to see what lies ahead. Look around." This gives Remy a burst of courage. He climbs out of the sewers, up a series of pipes, and onto a rooftop. And right there, he's stunned to realize he's in Paris. And even better, he's standing right next to Chef Gusteau's restaurant. Inside the restaurant, we see the new head chef, Skinner, a greedy man who's just using Gusteau's name to sell cheap, frozen food products. At that moment, a young man named Linguini arrives, holding a letter from his deceased mother, Renata, who was an old friend of Gusteau's. Linguini asks Skinner for a job, and Skinner reluctantly agrees to hire him as a garbage boy. Remy is watching all of this from a skylight on the roof. Suddenly, he sees Linguini accidentally spill a pot of soup while cleaning and then try to fix it, only making it much, much worse. Remy gets so frustrated, telling Gusteau's ghost that Linguini is about to ruin the restaurant's reputation, and just then, the window shifts, and Remy falls right into the kitchen. After scrambling to escape the chaos, and just before he can get out another window, Remy smells the soup that Linguini ruined, and he just can't resist. He goes over, washes his little paws, and starts to fix the soup. He adds ingredients, spices, and vegetables, adjusting the flavor until it's perfect. Suddenly, he realizes Linguini has been watching him the whole time. When Remy tries to escape, Linguini catches him and traps him under a colander. Just then, Skinner sees what happened and starts yelling at Linguini. But before he can do anything, a waiter takes a bowl of the new soup out to an important customer, who turns out to be a food critic named Céline Leclerc. Skinner is about to fire Linguini, but the waiter comes back and tells them the critic absolutely loved the soup and wants to know which chef made it. Everyone in the kitchen is baffled. Skinner tastes the soup himself and realizes it's incredible. That's when Colette, the only female chef in the kitchen, steps in and reminds Skinner of Gusteau's motto, "Anyone can cook." She tells him he can't fire Linguini because the critic might come back at any time and ask for that same soup. Skinner agrees, but on one condition. Linguini has to work under Colette's supervision and cook that exact same soup again right in front of him. While they're talking, Remy tries to make a run for it, but Skinner spots him and the whole kitchen staff attacks. Linguini manages to catch him and trap him in a jar. Skinner tells him to take the rat far away and get rid of it, because a rat in the kitchen means the restaurant gets shut down. Linguini takes Remy to the river to throw him in, but he just can't bring himself to do it. He starts talking to the rat, telling him he can't cook and he desperately needs this job. To his surprise, he realizes Remy understands every word he's saying and is nodding his head. So, they make a deal. Remy will help him cook in exchange for his freedom. Remy agrees, and they head back to Linguini's humble apartment. The next morning, Linguini wakes up to find that Remy has prepared a delicious breakfast for him. They head to the restaurant with Remy hidden in his clothes. Skinner demands he make the soup again. Linguini is nervous and doesn't know what to do, so Remy starts biting him to guide him, but that method doesn't really work. They duck into the food pantry, and when Skinner walks in, Linguini turns off the lights and hides Remy under his chef's hat. And this is where they accidentally discover the perfect way to communicate. Remy starts pulling on Linguini's hair, controlling his arms and legs like he's a little puppet. They go back to the apartment and practice this method all night until they've completely mastered it. The next day, with Remy's help, Linguini successfully recreates the soup, and everyone is blown away. Colette begins to train him on the fundamentals of cooking, and despite her tough style, Linguini starts to develop a crush on her. Meanwhile, Skinner opens the letter from Linguini's mother and discovers a shocking truth. Linguini is Gusteau's son and the rightful heir to the restaurant. According to Gusteau's will, if a rightful heir didn't appear within 2 years of his death, the restaurant would go to Skinner. The problem? There's less than a month left before that deadline. Skinner tells his lawyer to get a sample of Linguini's hair to confirm with a DNA test. One night, customers ask for something new. Skinner sees his chance and sets Linguini up for failure, telling him to prepare an old, complicated Gusteau recipe that was known to be a disaster. Of course, Remy rejects that recipe. He takes control of Linguini and starts inventing a completely new dish. Colette tries to stop him, but at the last second, he pushes her away and finishes his creation. The dish goes out to the customers, and everyone is amazed by the taste. The orders start pouring in for Linguini's special. After this success, Remy steps outside the restaurant for a bite to eat when he suddenly runs into his brother Emile and the rest of the rat colony. Emile asks him for some food, so Remy goes back into the kitchen to grab something from the pantry, but he finds the door locked. He sneaks into Skinner's office to get the key, and there, by complete chance, he finds the will and the DNA results that prove Linguini is Gusteau's son and the rightful heir. Skinner walks in, and Remy snatches the papers and runs. A thrilling chase through the streets of Paris begins, which ends with Remy escaping and Skinner falling into the river. Remy brings the papers back to Linguini, who is stunned by the truth. The news hits the papers, and just like that, Linguini is the new owner of Gusteau's and fires Skinner. Life changes fast. Linguini buys a new apartment, but his relationship with Remy starts to get a little shaky. During a press conference, Linguini gives the credit for his success to Colette instead of revealing Remy's secret. Remy feels betrayed. Then, suddenly, the critic Anton Ego appears and announces that he will be visiting the restaurant tomorrow night to review it. Linguini and Remy have a huge fight, and Linguini kicks him out. Remy, hurt and angry, decides to get revenge. He leads his entire colony into the restaurant at night to raid the pantry. Linguini happens to walk in on them and sees this betrayal. He kicks them all out and tells Remy that their partnership is over. Meanwhile, Skinner has been watching all of this and finally figures out that the rat is the real chef. The next day, Skinner sets a trap for Remy, catches him, and locks him in the trunk of his car. On the night of the big review, Linguini is in the kitchen, completely desperate and unable to do anything. The kitchen staff is on edge, and the whole situation is about to collapse. At that moment, Remy's dad and his brother Emile rescue him from Skinner's car, and Remy decides to return to the restaurant. When he gets to the kitchen, Linguini confesses the entire truth to the staff. This little rat is the real chef. They are all completely shocked and walk out. Even Colette leaves, feeling furious and betrayed. Linguini is left alone and defeated. But on her way out, Colette sees a copy of Anyone Can Cook and remembers Gusteau's motto, and she decides to go back. At the same time, Remy's dad apologizes to his son, tells him how proud he is of his courage, and calls on the entire colony to help. The kitchen transforms into a buzzing hive of organized rats, with each group handling a different task under Remy's direction. Linguini puts on a waiter's uniform and starts serving tables. Colette arrives and is stunned by the sight, but she accepts the situation and asks Remy, "What would your little chef like to cook for Ego?" Remy chooses a simple dish called Ratatouille, an old rustic peasant dish. He begins to cook it with love and passion and presents it to Anton Ego. The moment Ego takes his first bite, he is transported back in time to a childhood memory of his mother, making him the exact same meal. The pen falls from his hand as he's completely overwhelmed by the profound taste. After all the customers have left, Ego asks to meet the chef. Linguini and Colette present Remy to him. The next day, Ego writes a magnificent review, saying he had just eaten the best meal of his life and that its creator is the finest chef in all of Paris. He ends his article by confirming that Gusteau's motto, "Anyone can cook," is indeed true. Unfortunately, the health inspector, whom the rats had tied up in the pantry, reports the restaurant, and it gets shut down. But the story has a happy ending. Linguini, Colette, and Ego all go into business together and open a new bistro called La Ratatouille. Remy is the head chef, and Ego is a regular customer and investor. The entire rat colony lives in a special custom-built home in the attic above the restaurant, and Remy finally achieves his dream of becoming the greatest chef in Paris. Enjoyed the video? Leave a like, hit subscribe, and tell me what movie you want to see next. Thanks for watching.